Hello, everyone, and welcome to Full Time, where we take you around the world of soccer, locally, regionally, nationally, and internationally. Full Time is presented by the Game Sports Podcast and powered by 91 Network. You're listening to Season 5, Episode 3 of Full Time. I'm your host, Daniel Scarpino, and with me is our co host, Gitano Gallo. Before we begin today's show, Full Time is sponsored by Little Caesars Pizza. With their two locations in Sault Ste. Marie, Ontario, you can download and access the Pizza Portal app so you can enjoy a delicious hot and ready pizza from Little Caesars today. A reminder to listeners that recordings of Full Time occur weekly or bi-weekly, and uploads to all of our platforms for public viewing and listening occur weekly or bi-weekly as well. Folks, we welcome you back to Full Time, where we get to talk about the beautiful game. G, my brother, how are you on this wonderful rainy morning, sir?
I'm doing all right, Scarps. A little gutted to miss out on Oasis pre-sale, but we'll go again tonight, try and get him. But outside of that, I am doing wonderful. How are you?
I'm doing great, man, and I'm very pleased to be here with you this morning on our show. And in today's show, we will take a look at Europe's Big Five, the MLS, and specifically the Leagues Cup final, the summer transfer market, and local soccer. As always, if anyone would like to listen to our previous content, please check us out at Full Time on the Game Sports Podcast and 91 Network. And without further ado, Gaetano, and to everyone who has taken the time to tune in here today, let's kick off. We get today's show started by taking a look at Europe's Big Five. With all the domestic leagues across Europe having gotten the party started by kicking off their season last week, we'll take a brief overview as to how things have begun there. So, G, for you, what has stood out to sort of start things off here in 2024, 2025 for the campaigns in European football?
So one of the biggest stories, I know it's like 3 games into their season, but Kylian Mbappe still has no goal involvements for Real Madrid. Currently, Ollie McBurney has more goal involvements in La Liga than Kylian Mbappe, which is a sentence I never thought I would ever say in my lifetime. So, for all of the kind of fanfare and the hype around it, a little bit of a slow start for him. Obviously, we expect to turn it around, very soon and start putting up the goals and assists, but just kind of not the kind of story you expected when this transfer first got announced.
Yeah, no kidding. And yeah, I'm sure that's not going to last for too long. But we'll probably see him start banging in the goals in short order very soon. And then in terms of the English Premier League, things are looking pretty good for your side, my side, and well, for a few different sides. What would you say about that?
Yeah, the Prem's gotten off to a really good start. Obviously, being United, losing their first game, just fantastic stuff. Just exactly how we want the season to start. I really like Brighton's start. I know we're going to talk about them a little bit when it comes to transfers. I think they had kind of an off season last year. I think they're kind of back on kind of the trajectory we expected them to be on, just with their kind of random wonder kid signings, play fantastic, sell them for a ton of money, rinse and repeat. I expect that kind of that cycle is going to pick up. And then City and Arsenal, both undefeated. I don't think Arsenal's conceded a goal yet, correct? Yeah, City only conceding the one. I think it's just been kind of, even if you look at the top 6 right now, and mind you, it's only 2 games played, but it's City, it's Brighton, it's Arsenal, Liverpool, Tottenham, Newcastle. Everyone kind of that we expect to be in that ballpark is there. So I think that's going to continue for most of the season here.
Yeah, I'm definitely with you on that. And apart from the Premier League, the thing that kind of caught my eye the most was on match day 1 of Serie A. And I'd have to go and check myself for sure. But I think there were 7 out of the 10 games played, 7 or 8 of them were draws.
Yeah, and they were like all 1-1. Like it wasn't even like, nothing, not that 1-1 draw can't be exciting, but it wasn't like there was like multiple goals. Like it was just 1-1 draws across the board.
Yeah, and for me, that's either teams are being conservative and safe to start the season, or maybe it's just going to be super competitive and it's going to be a tight race, which, fingers crossed, I hope that's going to be the case. And again, it's super early days here with Europe's Big Five, but we don't have a ton, obviously, to highlight quite yet. But everything here that you'd want to catch on Full Time, Gitano and I are certainly going to be highlighting for all of you folks as the top 5 leagues in Europe continue to crack on. So international break in about a week, though, AG?
So following this weekend's game week, it's an international break, which is just fantastic because it's not like we just had a summer full of international soccer.
I would want some more. So yeah, we're gonna continue to highlight everything here on Full Time on each show for you all in Europe's Big Five. Let's now transition to the MLS, where unlike Europe's Big Five, the MLS season is closer to the end than it is the beginning. League play is set to resume this weekend now that the Leagues Cup has concluded. And before we get into how things are shaping up for the playoff run in the MLS, let's take a look at how the Leagues Cup final went. The Leagues Cup, as mentioned in our previous show, is an annual competition between all MLS teams as well as Liga MX teams from Mexico. This competition puts a temporary pause in league play for the MLS as all teams compete in the tournament. It was Columbus and LAFC who met up in the Leagues Cup final. Both teams earned their way to the final after strong showings in the group stage and the knockout rounds. In the Leagues Cup final, things were level at 1-1 for most of the second half. That was until two stoppage time goals from Columbus would see themselves over the line to capture the Leagues Cup title in a relatively dramatic fashion. So, G, it was pretty entertaining to say the very least. But what can you say for this final?
Yeah, I would say outside of like stoppage time, it wasn't maybe the greatest game in the world. It was, back and forth, nothing too crazy either way. I forgot Olivier Giroud played for LAFC. Nice to see him pop up. Unbelievable player. Unbelievable. Could still be doing it in Europe. I'm going to throw it out there. But yeah, two late goals from Columbus. Something I know like every league kind of has this, but like the last like 3 or 4 like MLS Cup finals and League Cup finals, like all seem to have had super late goals. Something we got like the Gareth Bale goal for LAFC in that MLS Cup final. So I don't know if it's just something in the water in North America. It's just the extra late goals. But I thought the game itself was actually really good. It was nice to see Zach Steffen for Columbus kind of stepping up. Ended up being goalkeeper of the tournament. Ex-City player, so I always want to see him succeed outside of that. But yeah, I thought, if you were to look at this game as a kind of advertisement, and mind you, like there are Liga MX teams in the tournament too, but the final is happening with 2 MLS teams. So if you were to look at this as kind of an advertisement for MLS soccer for fans abroad, I thought this was a great kind of showing for it. The league, looks very good right now, kind of the public eye. And a game like this definitely kind of pushes it kind of even further.
I'm with you on that. And, in the past, I wasn't so sure how I thought about this tournament and the way I felt about it. Last year, I started to change my opinion a little bit, obviously with Inter Miami winning it and Lionel Messi and the whole bit. And then this year, too, I thought to myself, what, I think that this is great. It's, right before the playoff run in and with the entertainment that was provided, I thought it was sensational. So big congrats to Columbus. And they've been winning a few trophies these past couple of seasons. So they certainly are ready for what's ahead of them and all the rest of it. So with now the Leagues Cup final having concluded, G, that means that the MLS is ready to resume with each team having less than 10 games to play. So would you say that we're in for a tightly contested battle for teams aiming to qualify for the playoffs in the MLS?
Oh, yeah. Again, we kind of talked about this. I don't know if it was last week or the week before, or last episode or the episode before, just how tight the playoff race is outside of, I think it was like San Jose. Like every other team in the league is like within a couple of points of a playoff spot right now. And obviously, like the league hasn't played for the month and a bit for the Leagues Cup, so it's kind of in the same spot still. I expect these next couple of weeks are going to be super hectic with MLS. There's a bunch of double game weeks coming up with midweek games. I'm not going to make any sort of prediction of who's qualifying for what outside of San Jose not qualifying because it's just so tight. Even I'm looking at the West right now, it's under 10 points between second bottom and the last playoff spot. And in the East, it's 2 points between between bottom and the last playoff spot. So I mean, like that is just ridiculously tight. That is 6 teams in there separated by a point or less. It's super exciting for the league. I think this is going to be kind of an all-timer kind of playoff run in here. Again, outside of San Jose. But yeah, I'm super excited. TFC are currently in a playoff spot, and I'm knocking on the wood on my desk right now because I really hope we keep it, but I'm really not sure. But yeah, it's going to be super exciting.
And you know what, too, as we've talked about this on our show numerous times, like the way that things can swing in the MLS, like it wouldn't be uncharacteristic of a team to win 3 games in a row or drop 3 games in a row. So like a team that's right now holding a playoff spot in whatever 7th or 8th place could easily drop down to like third from bottom in 2 weeks time or a week and a half or whatever. Like it wouldn't be strange to see that basically. So I also think that it's going to be tightly contested these final sort of month or so in the league to get into the playoffs, and can't wait for the run in. And just like we do here with Europe's Big Five, you can continually get all updates for the MLS right here on Full Time. This is Daniel Scarpino and Gitano Gallo, and you're listening to Full Time on the Game Sports Podcast and 91 Network. Reminder that Full Time is sponsored by Little Caesars Pizza. You can download and access the Pizza Portal app for any of the 2 locations in Sault Ste. Marie, Ontario. Have a delicious hot and ready pizza from Little Caesars today. The summer transfer market goes on, and we will be highlighting some of the recent moves which have taken place in the world of football. The following transfer market news comes from The Guardian, so be sure to check them out as they provide up-to-the-minute transfer market news. First, it's Ilkay Gundogan, who returns to Manchester City from Barcelona on a free transfer. It's 12 months after he had left the club. The 33-year-old, who was City's captain when they won the treble in 2023, will join on an initial 1-year deal with the option for a second. It's massive news in the world of football for a legend of the club to return so shortly after departing. This one is all yours, my friend.
Yeah, it's very rare in the world of football, or using life in general, really, to be able to correct a mistake so quickly and like directly. I said last summer that letting Ilkay Gundogan go to Barcelona on a free was one of, if not the worst pieces of transfer business the club had ever done up to that point. He just captained us to a treble, was still clearly one of the best midfielders in the world, and I thought not offering him the 3-year deal he wanted was just horrific. So to get kind of him, to get a chance to bring him back to the club, he ends up getting the 2 years. If you include the year in Barcelona, got his kind of 3 years there. It's just fantastic to have our treble winning captain back. And this isn't like an over the hill, like, when you see like players and like, I know definitely they do in the NHL where they like sign like a 1-day contract to like retire on like their former team. Like this isn't that. Like he is still one of the best midfielders in world football. Was by most accounts Barcelona's best player last year. Ran La Liga. Which is wild for him to, at 33, show up in La Liga and kind of run it the way he did. Still an elite footballer. And even with 2 years left, he's not the type of player whose game is reliant on like physical attributes. He reminds me of kind of an Andrea Pirlo, where it's, he could play to his late 30s. He's more of a possession, passing, intelligent player that his kind of game is going to stretch his career out a lot later. I think it's just absolutely brilliant business to bring him back, especially on a free. He kind of gave up his the last 2 years with Barcelona salary to make sure this move was a free. It's just brilliant. And I know there's been a lot of questions raised about because Pep had said in after one of our preseason games that James McAtee and Nico O'Reilly, 2 young players, he's like, I don't want them sold or loaned. I want them with the squad. So to kind of bring in another central midfielder, again, one of Ilkay Gundogan's quality. There's a lot of questions raised about that, kind of in terms of their playing time. But in my eyes, anyways, like I would staple James McAtee to Ilkay Gundogan for the next 2 years and be like, you learn everything you can from this man. And like I think that just to me makes way more sense. So City are probably going to be playing in the ballpark of 65 to 70 games this year, including the new Club World Cup next summer. So I think there's plenty of game time for all of those players. My captain's back. I'm so happy.
No kidding. And I remember when he had left the club, all the wonderful things that you had shared about him, and all of them, of course, rang incredibly true. But now that he is back, I think that it's huge for Manchester City. I think it's devastating for the majority of the league. But you did make a good point. Anybody that could stick on that guy's hip in the squad and learn from him, that's probably the most valuable thing that can possibly happen. Obviously Pep being the best manager in the world, he can teach him a lot, but he's already worked under him, and or excuse me, the younger players, they can learn a lot from him, but they could also learn a lot from a player who's already learned under Pep previously and has actually done it. So I think for everybody involved at City, I think this is a great move, and for everybody else in the league, maybe not so great. So congrats on getting him back, and I'm sure that that's going to bode well for those 65, 70 games, to your point, that Manchester City will be playing this season. Mikel Merino goes from Real Sociedad to Arsenal for a fee of 31.6 million, including add-ons. The 4-year deal has been signed by Merino with an option for a further 12 months. The 28-year-old made 242 appearances for Real Sociedad after joining from Newcastle back in 2018. Arsenal get another piece to the puzzle here. What can you say about this deal?
I think this is a really good deal. He's not exactly like a world beater, best midfielder in the league, any type of shout like that. But he's just like really solid across the board. Like, what you're getting from him. It's still a pretty high level. Like, don't get me wrong, he's not just some like scrub. He's still a very, very good football player. I think this is a great piece of business from Arsenal. It was like 31 million, you said? Yeah, like that is just, especially in today's market, for a player of his quality, I think that's just a steal. And I think he's just going to kind of settle right in with that squad, and he's going to look like he's been there for years and years and years. Already has a little bit of Premier League experience, about 25 odd games for Newcastle way back in the day. Until I pulled up his football page this morning, I forgot about that.
Yeah.
But yeah, so he's been in the Premier League before, was all right, was fantastic for Sociedad for those years. I think he's just going to be a great signing for you guys.
I think so too. And, I'd mentioned it, I don't know if it was our last show or the one before, but Arsenal needed 3 pieces this transfer window, this off season: a defender, a midfielder, and obviously the biggest one being a striker. So we've got 2 out of the 3 pieces now. So now it's hopefully time before deadline day approaches that Arsenal get a striker, but we'll see what happens. But I also really like the deal. And I think that he, to your point, is going to fit in very, very well with this Arsenal squad under Mikel Arteta. Desiree Doué goes from Rennes to Paris Saint-Germain for a fee of 42.6 million. PSG continue to recruit emerging talent with a move for the versatile creative player who featured at the Olympics this summer. This is a 5-year deal for the youngster. Do you like the move?
Yeah, I mean, like you said, PSG are kind of really pushing this youth movement now. Doué's only 19 years old, just turned 19 years old actually last month. So obviously, I don't think he's going to be a key player kind of maybe this year or next year, but definitely kind of for the future of this project. I think this is a really great signing.
I think so too. And to your point, with the direction that PSG is going, they're changing their approach with bringing in a lot of young players. So I think that this is kind of, I said, another piece of the puzzle for Arsenal. I think this is another piece of the puzzle for PSG, and I think it fits well. Next, it's Joao Felix, who goes from Atletico Madrid to Chelsea for a fee of 42 million. The Portuguese international signs a 7-year deal in a permanent return after scoring 4 goals during a 6-month loan spell in 2023. Gitano, it's another player added to Chelsea's squad. Does this move make sense?
Like, not in any capacity in my eyes. Obviously, like, we can make the jokes about, like, did you hear Carragher's comments?
Are they going to change?
Exactly. Like, it's not where is he going to play, it's where is he going to like change for the games. So obviously, like, we can make the squad size jokes. But he was at Chelsea for 6 months and did the equivalent of nothing. Those 4 goals really, it didn't push Chelsea any closer to any sort of major trophies. He's still only 24 years old, which blows my mind, considering how long it feels like he's been around. But he's not the player Chelsea need. If they're going to bring somebody into their 45-man squad, like, his profile isn't what they needed. He's already been there and not succeeded. I don't get this in any way, shape, or form.
Neither do I. And I mean, you sign on for 7 years, and I've always wondered this too, and I don't know how often or if this even happens, but if he's going to continue to be with the Portuguese national team, I wonder if he would have ever called up the manager, Roberto Martinez, or whoever he might eventually play under at the international level, and say, hey, you know what? For my career, in order for me to stay involved with the national team, where do you think that I should go? I don't necessarily know if going to a squad with that many players makes a lot of sense, because if you're not in a good run of form, you're not getting game time. because Chelsea have essentially two teams. They have an A team and a B team. So I don't know if that's the best move for him. Time's going to tell, but we'll see if he could be fit in. And I hope so for his career, but for the sake of Chelsea, I could care less. Jorginho Ruder goes from Leeds United to Brighton for a fee of 40 million. After a season and a half at Ellen Road, the 22-year-old joins the South Coast side for a club record fee, which is a 5-year contract. Leeds have been selling quite a bit this summer, and it's another big outgoing for them. What can you say for this one?
Yeah, so just on Leeds quick. That's kind of what happens. They built a squad to try and stay in the Premier League. Didn't really work out for them. They've just had to. It's almost like Southampton, like back in the day.
Right.
Obviously, not quite with the the quality that Southampton had, and like the ability to stay up and kind of have decent teams. But they built a really good young team, got promoted to the Premier League. Didn't really work out. Nothing ever really clicked there. And now the vultures have been circling. And that kind of that project, that cycle at Leeds is done. So yeah, this is obviously the time to kind of poach their players, and I've seen it happen quite a bit already this summer. I think this move for Jorginho Ruder for Brighton is fantastic. Like I mentioned, it's almost like they go and they find their wonder kids, buy him for cheap. He's going to show up, be fantastic for Brighton, because of course he will be. And then in probably 2 years we'll be talking about a 50-odd million move to a major European club. 22 years old as attacking midfielder. Already has some 11 goals in 64 appearances in the Bundesliga for Hoffenheim, 8 goals in 66 appearances for Leeds. I think this is just going to be a banger for Brighton. Maybe not like right away, but I'd say give him maybe till January to kind of acclimatize, and then he'll be fine.
I think so too. And you know what, Brighton, to your point, they've started off the season incredibly well. And it's another for them, which is great. And then in the case of Leeds, with the amount that they're selling, I'm sure that they're going to reinvest, and hopefully we do see them back in the Premier League in due time, because that's a proper club. But yeah, no, I think this is certainly a good move for the player, certainly a good thing for Brighton as well. Matthias de Ligt goes from Bayern Munich to Manchester United for 38.5 million. The former Ajax captain under Erik ten Hag will strengthen United at centre back after Euro's injury and Varane's departure. The 5-year deal has been signed with an option for an extension. How good of a move is this?
I think it's all right. I think he's a fine player. Still only 25 years old, plenty of time left. But he's never really quite reached those levels that we thought he would back in the Ajax days, when they were knocking out Real Madrid in the Champions League and going to Champions League semifinals. He's never really kind of hit that level at Juve or at Bayern Munich. I don't know if if you can't do it there, if you can't be that guy, the star center back, organize your defense, hold it down. If you can't do that, surrounded by world-class talent at Juve and at Bayern Munich, can you be that guy at United when you're playing with Johnny Evans? And I don't know if he's the solution that United fans think he is. I think he definitely could be a piece of that solution. I still think they need more. He's going to need a legitimate defensive midfielder in front of him, because Casemiro's legs haven't been attached to him for the last 3 years. Scott McTominay's off to Napoli. He's going to need better fullbacks, because Luke Shaw is aging out. Diego Dallo's super inconsistent. You get like 2 or 3 good games from him, then he falls off a cliff for 6 months. So he's a piece of it. I don't think he's kind of the fix that United fans think he's going to be. So I'm interested to see kind of how this works out. Kind of whether this is maybe finally the time that he reaches that level, or if kind of he peaked at Ajax and it's kind of all been downhill from here. Either way, again, just because he's United, I hope it goes miserably. Obviously don't wish any, ill intentions on him, but just for that sake, I don't hope it works out. It should be interesting to see what they do around him.
Yeah, and that's exactly it. And a lot of people don't end up recognizing that. Like, yes, you can bring a good player, even a top player, to a club, but if you don't have the right pieces around him, it oftentimes doesn't work. The only thing I'm going to say as to why I think that this could very well work out is because Ten Hag has managed him before. He's expressed his belief in him, and perhaps he knows something that you know that's going to work in that system, and maybe they have an intention United to put different pieces around him. So I think that it could work. Time's going to tell, but yeah, we'll see what happens there. It is a big move for United nonetheless for their back line. Next, it's Willian Pacho, who goes from Frankfurt to Paris Saint-Germain for 34.2 million. The composed center back, who made an immediate impact in his first season at Frankfurt, signs a 5-year deal amid reported interest from Liverpool. Gitano, it's another signing for PSG. Let's talk about this one.
Yeah, I really like this move for them. He was great last season for Frankfurt. I don't want to say one of the best center backs in the league, but very underrated. Was a lot better than kind of a lot of people are going to give him credit for. 22 years old, turns 23 this October. So plenty of time for him to grow and get better. I think this is going to be a banger for PSG.
Yeah, I think it's also a big move, and again, they're continuing to bolster their squad, not just for now, but for the future, indeed. Conor Gallagher goes from Chelsea to Atletico Madrid for 34 million. After a delay in the deal initially, Gallagher completes his move to Atletico Madrid, allowing the 24-year-old to start fresh in Spain. Gitano, what do you make of this one?
I love this move. No disrespect to Conor Gallagher, he's not the most technically gifted player, but his work rate and his brain for the game are incredible. So I think Diego Simeone is almost like the perfect manager for him to just plop him in the midfield. Just run around, tackle everything, just chaos, just make chaos. And I think Conor Gallagher is going to be fantastic at that. I think just like a perfect move for him, gets him out of that Chelsea squad where that midfield was just overloaded with players, obviously. I think it's just brilliant for them, brilliant for him, brilliant for the club. It's gonna be great for them.
I think so too. It's going to be a good fit for the player. It's going to be a good fit for the club. And we're going to talk about this next week in our show, sort of the winners and the losers of the transfer window. I'm going to give an early shout right now for Atletico Madrid because some of the business that they've done this window has been sensational. And I think this is another really good move for them and for their season, which is, just commenced a couple weeks ago. Evan Nilsson goes from Porto to Bournemouth, 31.7 million. The hugely sought-after striker with 60 Porto goals in 4 years now joins Bournemouth for a fee that could reach a club record of 40 million after add-ons. Gitano, it looks like Bournemouth have replaced Dominic Solanke in pretty excellent fashion here. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm super excited for this. Again, it's one of those transfers that a couple years ago you think oh, Bournemouth signing one of the top strikers in Portugal, that would never happen. Yet here we are, 24 years old, turns 25 this October. He just scores goals. He is a goal machine. I really hope he kind of hits the ground running. The Premier League's been kind of lacking some Brazilian flair up front. I think this just has all the makings of being a really fantastic move. I hope it turns out that way.
Yes, and I think that this is great for Bournemouth. I thought last season they were excellent, and this season too. I think with this addition, especially once Solanke departed, I think that this is going to be great for them. Wilson Odobert goes from Burnley to Tottenham for a fee of 31.5 million. Spurs announced the surprise swoop for the teenager who signs a 5-year deal and will wear the number 28 shirt. Gitano, is this a good signing for Spurs?
Yeah, I think it's all right. Again, it's not going to be a signing I think that has any impact. This year, next year. He's only 19 years old. Spurs like to think they're competing at the top of the Premier League. I don't see him getting tons of game time right away. Also, he plays kind of left mid, left wing. Raheem Son's going to be playing most of his minutes. So it's not something that's going to be super impactful right away. But I think being involved in that squad, learning from a player like him and Son. Definitely has kind of all the makings to be a really good signing for them for the future.
I think so too, and to learn under Ange at that club, I think will bode well for him if Ange even stays there. We know that the turnover rate with Tottenham managers is, pretty often. So we'll see how it works out. A young player, but certainly a lot of potential. And as always, we did not cover every single transfer that has taken place this window. So are there any, Gitano, that have caught your eye as of recent?
So I'm gonna bring up two here. So the first one being João Cancelo leaving Man City, going to Al Hilal for about 40 million. He hasn't really been a City player for the last couple of years. since kind of being exiled in December, January, the treble-winning season. Spent some time on loan at Bayern Munich, spent last year at Barcelona. He was never going to have a spot in the City squad, especially considering he had some kind of backroom issues. Nothing too publicized in terms of details, but had a falling out with Pep. It was never going to work out. So to get 40 million for him and get those wages off the book, fantastic. On his day, one of the best fullbacks I've ever seen. Just phenomenal. Just a shame he kind of couldn't get his head right and kind of keep that level. But wish him all the best. And then kind of an underrated, really good transfer, only confirmed a couple days ago, was Federico Chiesa to Liverpool from Juve for only 13 million euros. I think it's just, if he can stay healthy, this is going to be a great move for Liverpool. He's going to add some versatility up front. He can play multiple positions. You mentioned when we were off air that, after that Euro campaign, you wanted Arsenal to sign him. He was fantastic, one of Italy's best players. Again, he's just been unfortunate with injuries. He's missed 80 games in the last 3 years, which is quite a few. So I think, if he can stay healthy, this will be a really good addition to Liverpool. Maybe doesn't, push them right to the top of the table or, to any sort of major trophy, but definitely puts them well in the hunt for it. And I think if he gets hurt and he spends most of his kind of tenure in the hospital for them, then, a 13 million pound fee isn't the worst.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. It has all the makings of being a great signing, but again, he does have to stay fit and healthy. There were a few as well that caught my eye. Toyn Koop Miners goes from Atalanta to Juventus for up to 60 million in add-ons. I think that's a solid addition to Juve's midfield. Romelu Lukaku goes back to Italy, going to Napoli to play under Antonio Conte again. He leaves obviously from Chelsea. This is his 8th club, by the way. Lukaku, he's signed now for his 8th different club, and he does sign for 30 million. And Aaron Ramsdale was reported this morning to leave Arsenal for Southampton, where he will be back to being a number 1. So I want to tip my cap to him and wish him all the best, because he was a great servant to the club at Arsenal. And then the last one, nothing confirmed yet officially, but reported this morning, Ivan Toney is heading to Saudi Arabia. I don't know which club or for what fee it is, but he will be leaving Brentford, as it's been reported this morning. So those are a few others that caught my eye. And basically the summer transfer market only has a few days left. Gitano, it does close here on September 2nd, which is Monday of next week. And there's going to be I feel like there's going to be some big deadline deals on the last day. What do you think?
Oh, absolutely. There's just nothing better than deadline day chaos. But just want to touch on Toney. Do you wish maybe Arsenal was in for that? That's the exact kind of profile that they need.
So I had read a report, and I don't remember the outlet, so I don't want to quote it, but apparently Mikel Arteta had a meeting with him and they had a discussion. So if that is the case, I trust Arteta's judgment that if he didn't want him, he didn't want him. However, if that was sort of a fake report and it didn't happen, then I would have been certainly disappointed at this moment in time that we didn't go in for him, because I've been shouting since last season, maybe even before last season, that we should get somebody like him. So
again, especially with missing out on Solanke too, not even being in the running for him either. Again, and not that it has to be an English striker, but I just feel like for Arsenal, they've seen two kind of perfect targets go either, to their biggest rival in Spurs or leave the league. Just feels like missed opportunity.
Certainly feels that way. And again, I don't know what's going to happen here by the time September 2nd comes around, but I am still in the camp. I know you are. A lot of Arsenal fans are. A lot of people are in general, that Arsenal do need a striker. So, I'm going to hold on to hope that we're going to sign somebody before the window closes. But as we said, the window does close on September 2nd. And next week, we're going to have another show, and we're going to highlight all of the final moves and all the biggest news, of course, in the transfer market right here on Full Time. And now it is time for a local soccer update. Youth, men's, and women's summer soccer have officially wrapped up here in the city of Sault Ste. Marie. Gitano, last night was the last day of summer soccer here in the Soo, with youth games having wrapped up. Wednesday, our men's division wrapped up, and then this past Sunday, the women's division wrapped up. So in my opinion, this summer absolutely flew by. The season absolutely flew by, excuse me. But what can you say for another summer of soccer here in the Sioux, my friend?
Yeah, just a fantastic season. Personally, I'm a little disappointed I didn't get a goal this year, but I also thought that I played some of my best soccer of my life. So I was like, that's a fair trade-off. Love playing out, getting out with the boys again. We had a bunch of guys from years past going to return to the team, so that's always good fun to have the boys back. Got some great competitive games against UN. I don't think you nutmegged me this summer, which is a nice change of pace from the last couple. So personally, it was really good. And then just for the city as a whole, I think just we keep talking about just the level for soccer in the city just keeps rising and rising and rising. Across all the divisions, the men, the women, the kids, everyone's getting better. The tournament that we had over the summer, like everything's just bigger and better. I think it's just it's nice to kind of be on this trajectory with the sport in the city.
I'm with you without question, and not just even across our men's division, which of course we have our most attention that we pay to, but the women's division, the youth divisions, everything is on the up and up, and it's been great to see that the fields have been full this summer and that everyone's been enjoying the football. And unfortunately, we don't get to do it for a longer period of time, given the fact that we are in Northern Ontario in Canada, and we're going to be bracing a very cold winter here soon enough. But it was a fun summer indeed, and happy to have wrapped it up the way that we did on Wednesday. And now we move forward from here. And with the summer soccer season finishing up, that will mean that the indoor soccer season is just around the corner. There will also be a tournament, which we'll talk about in a future show, which will kickstart in September. So right now, there's a brief pause before the indoor soccer season commences in October for men's, youth, and women's. But there will be some happenings, Gitano, in local soccer here, as we talked about in our last show. And one of those big happenings is Algoma University, where the majority of our community will be paying their attention to. That's in the OUA, of course. First set of games this weekend against Western University. How awesome is that we can actually turn our attention to something, for the next month or so before we kick off the indoor season, G?
Yeah, it's fantastic. I don't want to call it like filler, but it's nice to have someone to kind of fill that gap between our seasons ending and our next season starting. Obviously, we can't play it, but spectating it is just fantastic. And we've highlighted in the last couple of shows, we've talked about like how much better both the men's and women teams have gotten, especially kind of since, your day and my sister's day, like compared to what they are now. So it's just fantastic to have the opportunity to watch players of that quality play and representing our city. Are they at home this weekend or are we away?
Oh, it's at home, so it's their season opener, but their home opener as well against Western, which for the women, I haven't checked the U Sports rankings, but typically a top 10 team in Canada. And the men's have over the past few years, they've fallen out of the top 10, but last year they came up here and played a one-off game against the men, and that was can't remember if it was 0-0 or 1-1. But anyways, it was a draw. So I think it's going to be some good competitive games this weekend, certainly with the men's side. And I'm looking forward to seeing what the women do, and I'll be cheering them on as well. So,
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a good season to kind of watch them and see the growth and development. And yeah, at least like you said, it's something to fill the time before we go and kick off that indoor season. So again, anybody who's looking forward to going to watch Algoma University this weekend, they do play against the Western Mustangs at Superior Heights Soccer Field. The women kick off at 1 p.m. and the men kick off at 3:15 p.m. both on Saturday and Sunday. So that's August 31st and September 1st. And as we said last show, all of the happenings in the OUA and in U Sports, you can catch right here on Full Time as the season progresses. This is Daniel Scarpino and Gitano Gallo, and you're listening to Full Time on the Game Sports Podcast and 91 Network. A reminder that Full Time is sponsored by Little Caesars Pizza. You can download and access the Pizza Portal app for any of the 2 locations in Sault Ste. Marie, Ontario. Have a delicious hot and ready pizza from Little Caesars today. Ladies and gentlemen, that is Full Time. As we bring today's show to a close, we want to extend our deepest thanks to each of you for joining us. Your support is greatly appreciated. G, well done this morning, my friend.
Yeah, well done to you as well. Thank you for having me. It's always, I'm not a morning person, but like getting up for this, easy as cake. Love doing it. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, and I feel as though it's the greatest way to kind of kickstart a weekend. It's my final weekend of holidays. School does start again next week. So it's a good way to go into the last weekend of holiday and then get ready to go again. A reminder to our listeners that the next episode of Full Time will be recorded the week of September 2nd, 2024. In that show, we will exclusively focus on the summer transfer market as we analyze how the window concluded, the money spent, and all of the major deals by various clubs around the world. And as always, we'll keep everyone in the loop with all of the happenings in the world of football. For weekly content, make sure to hit like, follow, and subscribe to all platforms of both the Game Sports Podcast and 91 Network on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Music, Facebook, Instagram, X, TikTok, and Podbean. For Gitano Gallo, my name is Daniel Scarpino, and thank you for tuning in to Full Time. We look forward to seeing you at kickoff next time back here on the Game Sports Podcast and 91 Network. Best always.